Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhignaswarat Tene Brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayah Tejo varimridam yatha vinimayo Yatratra sargo mrisha Dhamna swena sada nirastakohakam satyam param dhimahi Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amrita drava sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam Muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. We now enter the 16th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. Shuka Brahma Rishi continues. We saw in the last chapter that after killing Dhenukasura, and then one of the days when Krishna went to the banks of Yamuna, when Balaram did not go with him, suddenly all the cows as well as the cowherd boys drank the water of Yamuna in a particular place and they fell dead, and then Krishna revived them, and because of the poison that they had drunk, Krishna recognized that there is something in the waters and he has to take care of it. So Shuka Brahma Rishi now continues and says, Krishna then found out that there is a black snake, a giant black snake in the river, in that particular part of the river, and so he expelled it. So simply in one sentence, Shuka Brahma Rishi narrates the whole thing. And of course, Parikshit, being the avid listener he always is, he says, how did it happen? Please tell me all the details. How was the Lord able to subdue that giant snake who had taken up his abode in the river, and he had been tormenting people for so long there? So how did the Lord do this? Please tell us in detail, because we cannot be satisfied no matter how much we hear of the Supreme Lord. The cowherd boy Krishna, Gopala, he says, Gopala Udara Charitam Kastriptyeta Amritam Jushan. It is like nectar that the more you give, the more we desire to hear. So please tell in all detail. So now Shuka Brahma Rishi narrates the most famous incident called Kaliya Mardanam. That is the chastising of Kaliya. Kaliya is the name of the snake. So what happened was, in the river Yamuna, in a particular portion of Yamuna, which is like a pool formed by the river waters, there was a snake called Kaliya. And this Kaliya was a very giant snake. It had 100 heads, 101 in fact, including the main head. And with 101 heads, this Kaliya was having so much poison, and it was emitting poison in that particular region of Yamuna. And because of that, it was so powerful, the fumes of the poison, that even the birds flying over the river on that particular portion were falling dead. The wind coming out of it was even killing trees that were there by that particular portion. So noticing all this, Krishna saw that this is what has killed all the boys and the cows. So normally when they play, they don't go to that particular part of Yamuna. But on that particular day, as we saw in the last chapter, it was a very hot summer day. And while playing, they didn't notice and they reached that place. And of course, it was all arranged by Krishna in order to execute this pastime of Kaliya Mardanam. So because of that, they all drank that water, they fell dead, they were revived. So now Krishna notices that that is because of this Kaliya in this big pool of water formed by the river. So Krishna now decides to subdue this snake. So he gets up on top of a giant tree on the other side, which is a Kadamba tree, and then he tightens his cloth, he ties it behind him, and he rolls up his hair and everything, because he is ready to jump into the water. So from the branch of the tree, he jumps directly into the water, making a big splash. And it is said that when he jumped into the water, because of his jump, the entire pool was having so much ripple and the water swelled and it overflowed in all directions. And because of that, the snake Kaliya, immediately, who was residing in the bottom, he realized that somebody has come violating his space, and therefore he came with great fury and anger. And this snake therefore came up, and he saw the Lord, who is just a small boy outwardly. And so he came and he thought, how dare he jumped into the river in this portion which I rule. But he saw that he was looking so beautiful. Krishna was wearing yellow silk. He was looking like a dark blue cloud, and his countenance was so enchanting with a smile, and he was very fearless and yet looking so tender. And the snake saw and wondered, how come this small boy is challenging me? So he emitted poison, and it didn't do anything to the Lord. Then he went and enclosed him in his coils. He surrounded the body of Krishna with his coils, because Krishna was still looking like a small boy. And this was seen by the cowherd boys. So the cowherd boys had all been revived already, as we saw. So they were all standing outside the river, waiting outside, when they suddenly saw Krishna jump into the river. And they were very afraid, because, as we have seen many times, all the boys in Vrindavan, all the cowherd girls, all the men, women, even when they are given glimpses of Krishna's supreme powers, immediately they are made to forget it by Yoga Maya, and they simply treat him as their dear friend, their dear son, or their beloved. So these boys were all his friends, their dear loving friends. So they were all so worried for Krishna, because their very life is Krishna. Their they have dedicated their body, their energies, everything, because he is their dearest friend. And so they are all very worried, because Krishna is now caught in the coils of this giant cobra. And so they all were filled with grief, filled with fear, and they fell unconscious. And it is said that even the cows that were standing, that had also been just revived, they saw and they were weeping without being able to say anything. Meanwhile, back in Vrindavan, that is back in the town where Nanda and Yashoda and all the cowherd men and women are, and Balaram is also there, because as we saw in this particular pastime, so far Balaram hasn't come. Krishna came only with the other boys. So in the town, they saw a lot of terrible omens. So it is said that the earth, the skies, and their own bodies showed terrible omens. So earth had some tremors, the skies were seeing some meteors, and their bodies were quivering, their eyes were twitching, and so on. These are all considered bad omens. So noticing these omens, and noticing that Balaram also did not go that day, Nanda was very worried. All the cowherd men were very worried. And so they all concluded that something bad has happened to Krishna. So, again, just as the friends, the cowherd boys, the elders also always think of Krishna as someone they have to protect, they have to care for, and they are always worried for him. We saw even in the incident of Trinavrita, when Trinavrita, the demon who came in the form of this whirlwind, he took Krishna away. Yashoda fell down unconscious, thinking Krishna has been taken away forever. And that is the beauty of the cowherd men and women, boys and girls, that they have such love for Krishna that they feel never that he is the supreme Lord, but they only see him as their own dear friend or son. And so because of that, Nanda and all the cowherd boys were now so worried that something has happened to Krishna, and that is why all these bad omens are coming. And therefore they were also filled with sorrow and grief and fear, and everyone was distressed. All the women were distressed. Seeing all this, Balaram could only smile, because Balaram is the only one who knows who Krishna is, and he never is worried about it. So it is said here, Tams tatha kataran vikshya bhagavan madhavo balaha prahasya kinchin na uvacha prabhavagyo anujasya saha. So Anuja's brother, his younger brother is Krishna. So Prabhavo Anujasya Saha, knowing the great power, the great potency of his younger brother Krishna, who is none other than the Supreme Lord, he didn't speak anything. It is said Prahasya. So he just smiled within himself, because he knows that all of this is simply a leela, a pastime by Krishna. So he smiled and kept quiet. Meanwhile, everybody started searching for Krishna. So they were tracking the footprints of Krishna to find out where he has gone, which part of Yamuna he has gone to. So here it is beautifully said that even though Krishna walked on the banks of Yamuna a while ago, and there are many who go behind him, it is said that nobody would walk exactly on the path that Krishna walks on, so that his footprints are never trampled upon, and therefore his footprints are very distinctive. It has the mark of a lotus and the conch shell and so on, the divine marks. So they see these marks. Again, when they see these, they know these are Krishna's unique marks, but they never, because of this, again think of Krishna as the Supreme Lord. They just think he is a special child, and they are loving him in a way that they know is completely unlike the love for any other boy, and they know that he is the most attractive, but beyond that they don't even consider him as the supreme lord. So they follow these footprints which are divine, and they reach that particular part of Yamuna, and there they see Krishna from a distance inside the river, caught in the coils of this giant snake, and he remains without any motion. So Krishna is playing this wonderful pastime, and it everything has a reason why Krishna does this, because when he is caught in the coils of the cobra and remains without any motion, it seems like everything is stopped, because all the cowherd boys have also fallen down unconscious. The cows are all crying, and the cowherd men and women who have traced Krishna's footprints and come there, they see this and they are completely mortified. Their mind is so attached to Krishna, and they start recalling all the wonderful pastimes Krishna has done, his smiles, his glances. All the women are agonized, the cowherd girls who are falling in love, because Krishna has now already become a big boy, and the cowherd girls are also so attracted to Krishna, and their love is what is the highest expression of love for Krishna, the Madhurya Rasa. So here they are all secretly in such love with Krishna, and they are all unable to control their tears. They are wondering what has happened to Krishna. He is looking frozen, caught in the coils of this giant snake, and they are recalling his smiles, his glances, his wonderful mischievous pastimes. And Yashoda, the mother, is filled with tears, and she is not able to hold herself, and she is standing as though she is dead, and she is almost falling down. So the other cowherd women, on the one hand, they are themselves in an ocean of grief. On the other hand, they have to support Yashoda, who is almost going to fall dead. So, perceiving all this, Balaram was just standing there, seeing how long is Krishna going to do this play. And but then when Nanda and others wanted to enter the water, so the men immediately thought we have to enter the water to protect Krishna, and immediately Balaram stopped them, because Balaram knows that first of all Krishna is in no danger whatsoever, being the supreme lord, and second, the men who enter the water will be killed, and of course they can be revived by Krishna, but it is unnecessary. So Balaram, knowing everything, stops Nanda and stops all the cowherd men from entering, and he waits for Krishna to begin his pastime. So all of this is because Krishna is known to increase the joy of all the residents of Vrindavan. So when he puts them in this grief wherein they think that there is something has happened to him, and when they after that when they see him come back alive and execute his wondrous mischievous pastimes again, their joy is increased multifold. Because when one has something, it's even the most adorable, loved being, if one is all the time with us, it is one thing, we love them. But if we think we have lost them and we regain them, then the love of that is multifold increased. And that is what Krishna does each time, thereby increasing further and further the love and the joy of the Vrindavan gopis and gopas. So, after an hour of acting like he has been completely caught in the coils of this cobra, now Krishna starts his play. Once he sees that all the people have come, everybody is watching him, everybody is now starting to feel this grief. Now he decides that okay, now it's enough. Now we need to relieve their grief as well, and also give a lesson to this Kaliya. So he starts now expanding his body. After remaining still for an hour, he now starts expanding his body. And once he starts expanding, the serpent is not able to hold. So the serpent is getting suffocated. Krishna, with his yogic powers, he starts expanding his body more and more and more until the serpent is unable to do hold him, and it releases him. And as soon as it releases him, it starts emitting flames of poison at Krishna from a distance. But Krishna instantly goes around the snake. The snake is putting poison on its mouth, and it's emitting fire around it, but yet Krishna simply goes around and just jumps on top of the head of the snake. So as we notice, the snake has 100 heads, and one it's the central head, including that it's 101 heads. So on top of these 101 heads, Krishna starts jumping. So each time a head is raising its hood, that is, Krishna jumps on top of that with his foot, and it is very beautifully done, whereby he is dancing with such rhythm. He would put one foot on one head and press that foot. So when Krishna has expanded his weight, he is so heavy. We have seen this, even though his size would remain the same outwardly looking, his weight is unbearable. Even once when Yashoda was holding him on his lap, he increased his weight so much that she couldn't keep him on his lap and she put him down. So here he would do it even more. So he has increased his weight so much that each time he stamps his foot on the head is crushed, and then he would jump onto the next head which is rising, and then he would crush that head, and then he would jump to the next head that's rising. So in this way, Krishna was jumping on top of one head after another. He would alternate. Sometimes he would go from one head to the next to the next. Sometimes he would alternate between two heads, that is jumping two heads at the first and then the third and the fifth, every odd number. And sometimes he would jump on even numbers. He was playing with the snake's heads, and each time he danced on the top of the heads of this snake, the snake was getting crushed and the poison was getting spit out from the mouth of that particular head each time he was dancing. So perceiving this wonderful dance, it is said that all the divine beings from the heavens started playing musical instruments to accompany this. This is considered a very famous dance. Krishna is considered the master of all dance, and this is the most beautiful pastime of Krishna where he exhibits his dancing skill. So he dances while he is chastising and subduing the snake. He is doing it in the most aesthetic, artistic way and exhibiting his mastery over dance. And so he's dancing so beautifully, and the musical instruments are also played from the heavenly by the heavenly beings. And Krishna, who is now punishing this by crushing the heads of this Kaliya with his feet, he is basically, every time the pride of the snake comes up, which makes it rise its head, he is crushing it and making it bend low. And by doing so, by continuing to dance, what happens is, after the poison of the snake is completely exhausted, it starts vomiting blood out. So there is nothing left in the snake to give in terms of poison, and therefore it starts vomiting blood out. And it is said that Krishna's feet are also decorated by drops of blood, which seems like a beautiful decoration on his lotus feet. And with his hoods crushed by this wonderful dance of Krishna and all the limbs shattered and blood coming out, the serpent now suddenly realizes that he is completely powerless, and he starts praying to the Supreme Lord. So, this is the wonder how the most evil serpent, too, when it is about to face death, when everything has been taken, all its powers have been removed, all the poison has been removed, blood is coming out, he remembers Narayana. It says here, Smrtva charachara gurum purusham puranam narayanam tamaranam manasa jagama. The serpent still doesn't realize that it is Narayana who is Krishna dancing on top of the hoods, but he knows that Narayana is the supreme being. So it says here, Smritva Charachara Gurum, the preceptor, the teacher of all beings, Purusham Puranam, the supreme being, Narayanam, Manasa Jagama. So he surrendered to Narayana because he was completely helpless. This proud, vile snake, which was killing everyone, emitting so much poison, now was left to nothing, and he was praying, and at this time distressed to see the snake in such condition under the weight of Krishna. So Krishna, he carries the entire universe in his abdomen, it is said, and therefore when Krishna increases his weight, it is such that the snake cannot bear it at all, and therefore the snake is getting crushed. And Krishna is not killing the snake yet, he is just playing with it, and it is causing the snake to have such terrible agony and paying the price for all the sins it has committed. And meanwhile, there are the wives of this Kaliya snake, and the wives are all distressed to see, and they all approach Krishna and they fall at his feet and they offer a beautiful prayer. So this is a very nice prayer that is offered by the Nagapatnis, or the wives of the Kaliya snake. They say that you are always just in punishing the offenders, Lord, and whatever punishment you give is indeed the one that is deserved by the one who receives it. And not only that, your punishment will always only give good results, because your punishment is not to simply punish but to actually teach a lesson. And therefore they say your punishment is only to wipe out the sins. They say anugrahoyam bhavatah krutohi no dando satam te khalu kalmashapah. So you remove the sins by your punishment, and therefore your punishment is a grace. That's why they say krodhopi te anugraha eva sammatah. Even your anger, even your rage is only an act of grace, because everything you do is only to bestow grace. And this husband of ours certainly deserves it, because he has done all kinds of terrible things, and therefore as a result of that he has been given this punishment by you, which is only an act of grace. But then they say, we also wonder, he must have performed some great austerities, because how can he get the touch of your lotus feet on his head? All said and done, Krishna is dancing on the head of the snake, and so he is being graced by the lotus feet of Krishna every time he steps on each head of this Kaliya snake. And therefore, the wives rightly say that even despite this apparent punishment, he is actually being blessed, because you are actually touching him with your lotus feet, and therefore he must have done some great religious act in some past life. He must have done some act of compassion. Only because of that this is possible, because otherwise we are not able to discover how he can have the privilege of touching the dust of your lotus feet. Everyone is praying to have contact with the dust of your lotus feet, and he has got it no matter which way, no matter if it is a punishment. So, this is why we see that every time anyone is punished by Krishna, they are actually liberated by that punishment. And so, here also, Kaliya is being graced and blessed by the punishment of Krishna, and that's what the wives point out. They say that once one secures the dust of your lotus feet, nothing else matters. The realm of Brahma is not important, ruling the entire globe is not important, having dominion over the 14 worlds is not so important, having all the mystic yogic siddhis, yogic powers is not important, even liberation is not important compared to the contact with your lotus feet, the dust of your lotus feet. They say, Nanaka prishtam, nachasarva bhaumam, na parameshtyam, na rasadhipatyam, न योग सिद्धिर अपुनर्भवम वा वांछन्ति यत पाद rajaf prapannaha. One who got contact with your lotus feet, he doesn't desire anything. He has no desire for yogic siddhis, no desire for being the emperor of the universe, no desire for any kinds of powers or even liberation once he got the contact of your lotus feet, and that has been gotten by this Kaliya. What great blessing he has is what we wonder, even despite the fact that he is apparently getting punished, because he says to an embodied, they say that the wives say that to an embodied soul who is revolving in this mundane existence and seeking this dust, the true wealth of beatitude, the true blessing, the true benediction is manifest by contacting this lotus feet, the dust of your lotus feet. Then they offer a set of beautiful prayers for Krishna. They say, Namastubhyam Bhagavate Purushaya Mahatmane Bhutavasaya Bhutaya Paraya Paramatmane. O Lord, you are the supreme being, the ancient being, Mahatmane, the highest soul, Bhutavasaya, who resides in the hearts of all beings as the supreme self, Paramatma. Jnana Vijnana Nidhaye Brahmane Ananta Shaktaye Agunaya Avikaraya Namaste Aprakritaya Cha. They say you are the abode of knowledge and consciousness, wisdom, knowledge, consciousness, everything has its abode in you. You are the supreme Brahman. You are Ananta Shaktaye, means you are the storehouse of infinite powers, infinite potencies. You are beyond all attributes of material energy. You have no change whatsoever. Avikaraya, Aprakritaya, you are beyond the material nature itself. Namaste. We offer our obeisances to you. Kalaya Kalanabhaya Kala Vayava Sakshine Vishvaya Tad Upadrashtre Tad Kartre Vishvahetave. They say you are time itself, the storehouse of time and the witness of time, the form of this very universe and its very seer and its very maker and its very cause. So this prayer is every single line of this prayer of the wives of the Kaliya serpent is so beautiful, glorifying the Lord in the highest terms and giving the essence of the supreme wisdom. They say you are time, you are the, so he manifests as time, Kalaya, Kala Nabhaya, and you are the source of time, Kala Vayava Sakshine, you are the witness of time also. Vishvaya Tad Upadrashtre Tad Kartre Vishvahetave. You are the very universe and its seer and its maker and its very cause. So everything that there is you alone. You are the 10 senses of perception and action. You are the five gross elements, five subtle elements. You are the mind, the intellect, the ego, and memory. So the 24 elements, everything is you alone. And then they continue with this prayer. They say, you are the infinite Lord, the most subtle in the hearts of all, and you are beyond any intellectual comprehension, and you are the very power that gives words their meaning. They say, Namo Anantaya Sukshmaya Kutasthaya Vipaschite Nana Vadanurodhaya Vachya Vachaka Shaktaye. They say you are the subject of diverse theories and speculations. Nana Vadanurodhaya. People make different theories about you, different speculations about you, but you are beyond all of that. And Vachya Vachaka Shakti, you are the very power by which an object and its name are related. It's a very beautiful way to say, anytime we see an object and we name it, by the name we identify the object. And the relationship between the name and the object is how we comprehend this universe, and that very power by which the objects are named and thereby cognized is you. Then they say, Namah Pramana Mulaya, Kavaye Shastra Yonaye, Pravrittaya Nivrittaya, Nigamaya Namo Namaha. You are the source of all ways of gathering wisdom. Pramana means the ways of gathering wisdom. Pramana Mulaya means you are the source of all means of cognition, and you are the supreme sage, and you are the abode of all scriptures. Pravrittaya Nivrittaya, you are both the way of action and the way of silence, and you are the embodiment of all Vedas. Nigamaya Namo Namaha. Then they say, Namah Krishnaya Ramaya Vasudeva Sutaya Cha Pradyumnaya Aniruddhaya Satvatam Pataye Namaha. O Krishna, O Rama, that is Balarama, you are expanded as Balarama, you are the son of Vasudeva, Vasudeva Sutaya, and you are Pradyumna and Aniruddha, which are also your expansions, and you are the Lord of all devotees. Then they say, Namo Guna Pradipaya, Gunatma Chadanaya Cha, Guna Vrityupalakshyaya, Guna Drashtre Swasambide. They say, you are the illuminator of all the senses, that is the 10 senses of cognition and action, as well as mind, reason, intellect, and ego. You appear in diverse forms through all the gunas, and you are their very witness as well. Your glory cannot be comprehended through any way of reasoning or understanding, because you are the originator and revealer of all phenomena. You are the ruler of all the senses. You are always the embodiment of silence, and you act in silence. Very beautiful verse again. They say, Avyakrita Viharaya Sarva Vyakrita Siddhaye Hrishikesha Namoste Astu Munaye Maunashaline. Rishikesha means ruler of all the senses. Munaye means the highest sage who abides in silence. Maunashaline means one who acts in that silence, and who is the whose glory cannot be comprehended through any amount of reasoning. Then they finally say, you are the one who knows the condition of everyone, high and low, up and below. You preside over all. You are both the universe and you are beyond the universe, and you are the witness and the cause of the universe. Every prayer is very poetic to beautiful, beautifully composed. They say, Paravara Gatignyaya Sarvadhyakshaya Te Namaha Avishvaya Cha Vishvaya Tadrashtrasya Cha Hetave. So, in this way, they glorify Krishna, all these wives of Kaliya, and then they say, you are the one who brings forth the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe through your own potency of time. And all the three worlds that are found through the three gunas you have is all your own manifestation. Sometimes you take the gentle form, sometimes you take the very active form, and sometimes you take the form of destruction as well. Right now, you have embodied the form of the most graceful Shyama Sundara, the one who embodies pure grace as Krishna. Therefore, they say, please forgive this poor husband of ours. He has already surrendered to you, because they see him, and we already saw that he invoked Narayana when he completely lost everything, the Kaliya serpent who was evil until then. So, recognizing that he has turned around, the wives are making a plea on behalf of him, and they say, please bestow your grace. You have already, in fact, bestowed your grace by just touching your lotus feet on his head. Now, also, please spare him, and he will go away, because he has now got no poison anymore. So they say, Anugrihnishva Bhagavan Pranam Tyajati Pannaga Srinam na sadhu shochyanam patif prana pradiyata. They say, O Lord, he will lose his life imminently if you continue with this. So he is now free of all poison, as you know. So please, Anugrihnishva, bestow your grace, and thereby we also don't lose our husband. So please tell us what we should do as your servants, because whatever one does in deference to your command is the best way to be free of suffering. So, listening to this prayer of all these wives, this very long and beautiful prayer, and also because Kaliya has been completely rid of all poison, and he has also surrendered, invoking Narayana. So, Krishna gradually lets him go, stops. His hoods have already been smashed with the blows of his heels, and he had fallen into a swoon, almost dying. So Krishna lets him go, and now slowly and gradually he recovers his senses, his breathing, and he joins his palms, and he recognizes who is this. And so he offers a prayer to Krishna very beautifully. He says, O Krishna, I am completely at fault for doing whatever I have done, because we are wicked by birth. We are snakes after all. We are caught in tamoguna. We are always in anger, and we have been made with poison. This is the natural disposition we have. But this universe, which has all the various diverse peculiarities and all the various potencies, is all evolved by you, and therefore even this poisonous power that I have has come forth only from your potency, and now you have gotten rid of it. We are naturally ferocious by birth, and we cannot be free of this until you bestow your grace. So it is not by our efforts but by only your grace that we can be free of this poison. They say, beautifully, then he concludes by saying, Bhavan hi karanam tatra sarvagyo jagadishvaraha anugraham nigraham va manyase tad videhinah. He says, O Lord, you are the cause of everything. Bhavan hi karanam tatra sarvagyo jagadishvaraha. You are the cause of everything, and therefore whether to bestow grace or to keep me in ignorance is only up to you. So, this is the beautiful prayer of Kaliya, which is actually for all of us applicable, that our efforts cannot free us, but only His grace can free us. And therefore, when we recognize this and we surrender, then His grace immediately is there. So, we saw in the case of Kaliya too, he invoked Narayana and he surrendered inwardly, and his wives also offered a prayer, and thereby he was let go. So, if we struggle with our own efforts, it is only up to the point where we recognize that our efforts are limited, finite, and cannot touch the infinite. And when we let go, then what remains is the infinite Lord, and His grace comes upon us. So that's why here beautifully Kaliya says, whether to bestow your grace or whether to not bestow is up to you, because everything is under your control. You are the cause of everything. So here, hearing this prayer, rather, Krishna who says, okay, Kaliya, you ought not to be here. You have to leave this place. You are anyway free of poison, and not to worry. So he was actually very afraid of Garuda. Garuda is the eagle who eats snakes. The Garuda is the vehicle of Krishna, Narayana. So he says, you need not worry about Garuda. He'll not harm you, and you are free of poison. So now swim your way and go reach the ocean and be there and not trouble anyone anymore. And hearing this, Kaliya also, having heard Krishna say this, he went around Krishna, all the wives went around Krishna, and they offered the most beautiful prayer there with whatever paraphernalia they had. It says, Evamukto Bhagavata Krishnena Adbhuta Karmana Tam Pujayamasa Muda Nagapatnyascha Sadaram. So along with the Nagapatnis, the wives of Kaliya offered his prayer. So Krishna says that you go, after he says you go now, leave this place and go off to the ocean. He also says that anyone who remembers this prayer, this whole incident, Kaliya coming to this river and troubling others, and me jumping into this this river, dancing on Kaliya, the vision of Krishna dancing on the top of the hoods of Kaliya, the wives offering the prayers, and then Kaliya being driven out. Anyone who remembers this and who comes here, especially to Yamuna, where this pastime happens, is completely free of all sins. And therefore, anyone who can simply listen to this story with reverence is bestowed with blessings. So, in this way, this pastime concludes, and Kaliya offers his prayer to the Supreme Lord Jagannatha, who is Krishna. It says, Pujayitva Jagannatham Prasadya Garudadhvajam Tataf Prito Abhyanugyata Parikramya Abhivandyatam. So he does a parikrama, that is, he goes around Krishna, circumambulates him, and he offers his obeisances, and he offers his prayers to Jagannatha, who is the Lord of the universe. It's a beautiful name of Krishna, which is also the name of the most beautiful deity in Puri. Jagannatha is the name of Krishna as the Lord of Puri, Jagannath. So, offering his prayers to Jagannath, they leave. So, with this pastime ends, the glorious pastime of Kaliya Mardanam. And the important symbolism here to note is that Kaliya represents actually the senses and their desire to engage in various activities and thereby poisoning our lives. So the reason Kaliya has 100 hoods is because there are 10 senses we have, the 5 senses of cognition, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, and the 5 senses of action, which are speaking, holding, moving, excreting, and copulating. So these 10 senses, and they go in 10 different directions. So there is the four cardinal directions, northeast, west, south, and the four ordinal directions, northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest, and then up and down, which is making it 10 directions. So 10 senses going in 10 directions is 100, and that is why he has 100 hoods. And with these 100 hoods, the senses are putting out a lot of poison and thereby affecting our lives. And so, to subdue the senses and to remove the poison from them is by surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. And when the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord touches the senses, that is when our senses, using the senses, we actually listen to and see and remember the pastimes and the names and the glories of Bhagavan, then the senses are freed of the poison and they are not harmful anymore. So that is the symbolism of the story. So this is a beautiful and very famous pastime of Krishna called Kaliya Mardanam, which is the content of this wonderful chapter. And with this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.